Okay, hello. Good evening, everyone. Sound check muna tayo. Am I audible? Anyone?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we should start now our lecture. Sagit lang. No? Okay, so are you ready? This is a lecture on improper integrals. I hope you went over your module para at least you have an idea of it and para makapagtanong kayo. So you will have to ask me, or I mean, you will be able to ask me, your question, something that you did not understand from your module. So ang gagawin natin, I'm going to briefly explain what we mean by improper integral. I'm going to make use of GeoGebra, and then we will answer some of or I mean, all naman, tatlo lang naman yung tigta tatlo. All the items included in the practice exercises. And then later on, I will be letting you ask your questions. Okay, so let me start with this one. Kindly comment or sabihin niyo kung hindi maganda yung screen. Yeah. Okay lang ba? I'm monitoring myself also, pero baka kindly put your phones, no, especially those who are using their phones, in dapat naka-landscape para makuha lahat. Alright? So, to illustrate to you know what we mean by an improper integral, balikan natin yung ating lesson sa chapter 2. Chapter 2, or I mean, part 2 of chapter 1. That is on definite integration. So under definite integration, naglagay tayo ng mga limits, and to provide you a visual representation, sabi natin before na actually yung sagot ng isang definite integral represents the area under the function or below the function. So halimbawa dito, ang ating function, nakikita natin dito, it's a very simple function, it's x squared. If we integrate that one from 3 to 10, then it becomes a. So merong kulang, no? Dapat merong dx. Saan natin ilagay dito? dx. And so this is an example, as I was saying, this is an example of a definite integral. We have here the function, it's x squared. It's just a parabola opening upwards. By the way, I cannot monitor already the ano na yun, yung Google Meet. Nandito lang ako sa GeoGebra. I might not be able to accept students who are still joining. So sabihin nyo na lang. Just tell us na i-accept ko. Sige. So, again, this is our function x squared dx. It's a parabola opening upward. The limits here are 3 and 10. So yung 3 at saka 10 na ito yung boundary na magsiset, na magbabound doon sa area na gusto natin. So halimbawa dito, zoom in ko para makita natin. Yung area na nire-represent ng integral na ito ay itong colored na area. At yung 3 at saka 10 na ito, they correspond to the lower and the upper limit. So yung lower limit natin, magsisimula yan sa 3 at ang upper limit natin, 10. So the area from x equal to 3 until 10, that area is 324.33 squared units. So yun yung ibig sabihin ng definite integration. So if we want to put a meaning of this quantity, it should be the area under the curve. So in this topic, no, it's not just about definite integration. Medyo may twist. That's why it's called an improper integral. So an improper integral stems from a definite integral, except that hindi na ang mga limits natin ay hindi na normal na real number. So anong ibig sabihin natin dito? Either one of the limits or both of them actually approaches infinity. So hindi na siya bounded. It's already unbounded. So maaaring iset natin itong unang boundary. So the lower limit, that's 3. Nakikita natin na 3 dito. Pero what happens if tanggalin natin yung boundary, si B, at gawin nating infinity? Ibig sabihin, it is increasing without bound. What happens to the area? Kasi area pa rin naman yung representation nun. Kaya nga lang, ang sinasabi natin, yung isa sa mga limit, unahin natin sa upper limit. What happens to this area if the upper limit is not just a number, but merong siyang behavior, no? Kasi infinity naman is not a number. So sabihin natin na the upper limit increases without bound. Pataas yan ng pataas. So gawin natin, just to illustrate, no? Gawin natin what happens to this area, because in this case, pag magmula ka lang ng 3 to 10, definite, no, very definite, specific, exact yung area na na-compute. It's 324.33 squared units. But what happens if we try the upper limit na mataas, pataas, paakyat ng paakyat, yan. So maybe from 10, gawin nating 12, and then 40, yan. So paakyat siya ng paakyat. What happens to the area? Paakyat din siya ng paakyat. It's also increasing without bound. So habang nag-i-increase si upper limit without bound, so that is what we mean by positive infinity. Ulitin natin. Ang ibig sabihin ng positive infinity, the number is increasing without bound. Now, what happens to the integral? By geometric representation, the area computed. Nakikita natin na umaakyat din yung ating mga numbers dito. This is like in million already, 87 million plus, hanggang sa magiging billions na yata yan. So we see that, of course, as we increase the value of B or the upper limit, nag-i-increase din yung area indefinitely. So as B approaches positive infinity, the area approaches positive infinity as well. So this is an example of an improper integral. Bakit ulit improper integral ito? Because the upper limit is not just a number, it is positive infinity. It is going or increasing without bound. And the answer is positive infinity, the area. Because as we can see here, syempre hindi yan matatapos, no? Yung area na nandito, paakyat ng paakyat yan, habang ang inyong upper limit ay paakyat din ng paakyat. Yan. So how should we write that? How should we write this one? Yan. This is actually written as, so our function is x squared dx. from 3 hanggang positive infinity, the answer is positive infinity. If we base it on this uh, geometric representation. So nakikita natin agad, malalaman natin agad yung sagot kasi nakikita natin yung kaniyang graph. Later on, we will do it algebraically para alam nating i-compute kahit hindi natin nakikita yung kaniyang graph. So, yun yung ibig sabihin ng ating improper integral. Isa sa kaniyang limit or actually both or pwedeng sa lower limit lang ay positive infinity. So that's the first type actually or the first group of improper integrals. Yeah. So what if ang i-fix natin naman dito sa ating graph ay say babaan natin. Nasa 10 lang. Tapos yung mag-a-approach ng infinity ay si lower limit. So ibig sabihin, since lower limit siya, mag-a-approach siya to the negative infinity. It is decreasing naman ngayon without bound. So from siguro 3 na yon, magiging negative 80, negative 90, negative 100 plus, negative 1,000 plus, and so on and so forth. Ganyan. So what happens to the area? Siyempre dahil area lang siya, parang positive infinity pa rin, no? So it's still infinity and infinity. The area will always increase without bound, regardless kung yung upper limit or yung lower limit yung maging positive or negative infinity, or even both. What if both of them, the upper limit and the lower limit, they are all approaching the infinities? E di mas malala, ang kanilang area din ay mag-a-approach ng positive infinity. So this is an example of an improper integral, and this is an example of an improper integral that diverges. Nagda-diverge siya kasi positive infinity or infinity ang kaniyang result. Kung meron siyang sagot, halimbawa ito, meron akong it's actually the same examples or functions included in the module, pero wala kasing graph, kaya i-graph natin. Ayan. So we have here another function. What is this function? It's 1 over x squared. Hindi kasi lahat ng improper integrals ay nagda-diverge. Hindi lahat ng area, kahit infinity pa yung isa or both of the limits, hindi ibig sabihin na nagda-diverge or pataas ng pataas or palaki ng palaki yung area indefinitely. There are other functions, interesting functions, na kahit gawin pa nating positive infinity yung upper limit or gawin nating negative infinity yung lower limit, yung area niya ay magko-converge. Ibig sabihin, definite yung kaniyang area. Halimbawa na lang dito sa function na ito. Ang function natin dito ay, hindi natin makita yung... Ang function natin dito ay 1 over x squared. I-set natin, medyo babaan muna natin. Siguro ang a natin ay kahit 1 muna. Yan. Tapos, ito ang upper limit natin, it's b. So, as I was saying a while back, hindi lahat ng cases kapag i-approach niya yung infinity agad-agad yung kaniyang area or kaniyang sagot. So, ito yung function natin ngayon. This is another example. The function is 1 over x squared dx. And we see here that the lower limit, i-fix muna natin sa 1 so that it's the upper limit that will approach positive infinity. So let's observe, no? Let's start from siguro 10. So this is the area kapag definite integral lang siya na ang kaniyang lower limit starts, it's from 1 until 10. The answer is 0.9 squared units. Now, what happens if b will approach positive infinity? Parehas ba siya sa function kanina na yung kaniyang area dito ay palaki din ng palaki? Definitely. Or it will converge, meaning it will approach a particular number, a particular limit. And I'm sure na if you read that module, to compute an improper integral algebraically, it will involve limits na cover natin sa calculus 1. Anyway, sige. Let's make the upper limit b increases. So what happens? So ang area sa ngayon, b is 70, it's 0.99. Pataas pa rin natin at still 0.99. Ayun. Tapos naging 1. Tapos paakyat ng paakyat, hindi na nagbabago yung kanyang area. It's always 1. Ibig sabihin, nag-converge na yung ating area. It's 1 squared units. Yan. So 1 pa rin siya. So this is an example of a function such that even if one of the limits is the infinity, one of the infinities, maaaring ang area natin ay definite. Ibig sabihin, convergent kasi yung integral na yon, yung improper integral na yon. So yun actually yung tinitingnan natin, no? Makaka-compute ka lang ng area dito kung ang improper integral mo ay convergent. Otherwise, it's sasabihin mo lang na divergent, ibig sabihin walang area, indefinitely increasing or decreasing. So that is the first type of improper integrals. So how do we characterize the first type? In other books or references, they call this one the first type of improper integrals. Either one of the limits or both of the limits is or are the positive infinity or positive infinities. So madali lang mamukhaan ang type 1 improper integrals kasi makikita natin na one or both of the limits ay si positive or negative or both na infinities. If the limits involve any of the infinities, type 1 na improper integrals yan. At ang formula or ang definition, meaning how we compute those integrals are provided in your module. You see letter A, B, at saka C. Dito yata. Dito. Ito. There you have it. So sa letter A, this is a case where, katulad ng pinakita natin kanina sa unang example, the upper limit is the positive infinity. How do we solve that? Magiging limit na siya. So it will involve your knowledge on limits. It becomes the limit of, pares na function yan from A to B, but B approaches positive infinity. So parang pinalitan mo lang yan ng variable, yung upper limit. So instead of positive infinity yan, naging B na siya kasi naging limit nga. Tapos B, yung argument ng limit natin, B approaches positive infinity. Dito sa baba, that's letter B. That happens if, this is what we use if yung lower limit yung infinity. So from negative infinity to B, yan. So ganun din naman, magiging limit, the same function of course, integral. And kopyahin mo kung ano yung B dyan. Tapos A, and A approaches negative infinity. Letter C, both of the limits, parang mali pa to, no? Yeah, edit natin. Negative infinity to positive infinity dapat ito. Kindly take note of that. There. Magiging dalawang limits. For letter C, there will be two limits. Nahati kasi siya. Nag-introduce tayo ng C. So again, sa letter C, nag-introduce tayo ng variable C. Why? Kasi dito, no, nahati siya. Ito yung pagkakahati. Arbitrary yung pagpili ng C. Any number yan actually between negative infinity and positive infinity. Pero by experience, mas madali na iset natin, no? Napiliin natin na ang value ng C ay 0. Mas madaling mag-integrate or mag-evaluate dyan kapag iset natin si C as equal to 0. So these are the three type 1 improper integrals. Makikita natin agad, may positive infinity dyan, may negative infinity, or both limits are the infinities. And how do we compute this one? It's like computing the limits. Naghalo yung knowledge natin or yung idea ng limits at yung definite integration. So una natin gagawin, of course, is to find an antiderivative. Anti-differentiate natin yung function. Tapos, gamitin natin yung FTC natin, yung Fundamental Theorem of Calculus na parang ginawa natin din sa definite integration. And then, we evaluate this limit. That's why I included here sa una yung mga important limit properties, shortcuts na pwede nating gamitin. So, dito na normally tayo nalilito or hindi alam. Kagaya na lang ng what is positive infinity plus infinity? Positive infinity plus positive infinity. If you're adding two infinities, that is infinity. A number that increases without bound, if you add it to a number that increases without bound, altogether, the number increases without bound. That's why the answer here is still positive infinity. Pero kung subtraction na yan, magiging indeterminate. A number increasing without bound minus a number increasing without bound is indeterminate. Actually, that would make sense because hindi natin alam, no? Depende kung ang nauna ay mas malaki or mas maliit, kaya indeterminate yan. Hindi natin alam kung nag-i-increase siya or nagdi-decrease. I hope ito. Sinasabi natin kanina, bakit ang positive infinity, kapag i-add natin sa positive infinity pa rin yung sagot. So ito kasi, it is increasing without bound. Also, it is increasing without bound. If you add those numbers, syempre, ang behavior ng sagot ay parehas, mag-i-increase siya without bound. But what is positive infinity minus positive infinity? So you have in the first number, no, in the first entity, it is increasing without bound. Ganon din dito, it is increasing without bound. What happens if you subtract them? It's indeterminate because depende kung ano yung sagot, kung mas malaki ito kaysa dito. So maaaring ang sagot dito ay negative infinity or positive infinity. Hindi natin alam. That's why we say it's indeterminate. Mga ganyan. Maraming ganyan dito sa ating module. Nilagay ko na yung sa tingin ko ay magagamit natin in the future. Ganon din sa sa functions, exponential functions, logarithmic functions. The limit of e raised to x as x approaches positive infinity is positive infinity. So kung ang x nag-a-approach ng positive infinity, the answer is positive infinity. Your function is e raised to x. Pero kung negative infinity, magiging 0. Hindi na naman niya ipa-follow na magiging negative infinity yung kaniyang sagot. Yeah, so I hope nakita niyo ito. Hindi na natin sasagutin itong the same na examples. Andito naman na na-explain na dito. So what we're going to answer, ito, si practice exercise 4.1. So how do we identify or determine the answer, the value of an improper integral without looking at the graph, no? And actually, if we look at the graph, napaka-subjective siya. Sometimes it looks like, or the graph looks like a function having a definite area, pero hindi lang natin alam kasi subjective na, ino-observe lang natin yung graph. Mas maganda if we develop our skill to compute these improper integrals algebraically. Sige, saglit lang. Pakisabi, mag-enter ulit na lang sila. So I can accept them. Okay. Okay na ba? Or andun pa sila? Okay na? Should we continue? Or meron pa? Ayun, meron pa nga. Okay, so anyway, ito, sagutin natin ang mga ito. Sulat ko na lang ulit dito sa board natin. So the first one, that's the integral of a very simple function, e raised to x dx. Negative infinity to negative 1. So again, if you are asked what type of improper integrals, because this is an improper integral, because obviously we can see that one of the limits is the one of the infinities. Specifically, it's the lower limit, that's negative infinity. The upper limit is bounded, that's negative 1. So, pababa. Pababa tayo. Our function is ex dx. So, we have to use what type of improper integral? That's the type 1, the first type. Pero tatlo sila. Anong formula ang gagamitin natin? Balikan natin dito. So, lower limit yung infinity. Kaya ang gagamitin natin ay A, B, or C. Sa tingin nyo?
B.
Letter B. Yes. It should be the second one because we have here an improper integral whose lower limit is negative infinity. So, sundan lang natin yan. It's the same. Lagyan lang natin siya ng limit na term. So, this is the limit of the same function, ex dx, from a to negative 1. Pero si a, it approaches negative infinity. So, that's it. Nasulat natin ang ating isosolve. So from here, evaluate na natin yung ating integral tapos panghuli yung limit. Ano na ulit yung integral ng e raised to x? Anyone?
E raised to x din.
So, ganun din, e raised to x from a to negative 1. So, yun lang yan. So, na-integrate na natin, the answer is still ex. Hindi lang natin kinopya, nagkataon lang na ang kanyang, ang integral ng e raised to x ay si e raised to x. And then, the next step here is, of course, to evaluate this one. Parang definite integral na ito. Kasi this is a. And to do that, we're going to make use of our fundamental theorem, our second fundamental theorem of calculus. Shortcut ko yun as FTC. So we would start with the upper limit, that's e raised to negative 1 minus e raised to a. So substitution lang ng negative 1 at a doon sa variable natin, sa function natin. So actually, that's it. The next step is to compute for the limit. So kapag subtraction, the limit of the difference of two functions is the same as the difference of the limits of those two functions. So we can actually compute this one as the limit of e raised to negative 1 as a approaches negative infinity minus, so hinati natin, a approaches negative infinity. So sa unang limit, kailangan alam natin kung ano yan. What is e raised to negative 1? E raised to negative 1 is just the same as 1 over e, which is just a constant. Constant lang, walang variable na involved dyan. Our variable here is a. So since it's just a constant, we're going to make use of the first property na nakalagay dyan. The limit of a constant as x approaches any number a is simply the constants. I-copy lang natin si e raised to negative 1. Minus, how about the second limit? What is the value? So ito, parang e raised to a as a approaches negative infinity. Hanapin natin yung kung ano yung applicable dito. Saan ba? Dito. So mamili tayo dito sa may properties 28 to 35. Andyan yung exponential at logarithmic functions natin. So of course, the argument of the limit, it's e raised to x, parang ganun dyan. E raised to a lang yung variable natin dun sa problem na sinusolve natin. And it's the negative infinity. So number 29, I think, is appropriate. Tama ba?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Limit of e raised to x as x approaches negative infinity is equal to 0. So 0 yung sagot. Balikan natin yung sinusolve natin kanina at isulat natin yung 0. So the answer is e raised to negative 1 or just the same as 1 over e. So convergent yung ating unang improper integral. Questions? Do you have a clarification about that first item in your practice exercise 4.1? Very straightforward lang siya. No? So ang importante dito, no, ay ang ating knowledge sa limits. Nilagay ko naman sa taas, it's just your job to identify the appropriate property na gagamitin ninyo. Let's answer the second one. That is x squared minus 1 dx from 2 to positive infinity. Again, this is the first type of improper integrals. Actually, yung tatlo na yan, nakikita naman natin na ang kaniyang upper limit ay positive infinity. So automatic, no, alam natin na improper integral. So it's, what definition are we going to use? Since ang upper limit, ang infinity, anong definition yung gagamitin natin from among the three, A, B, or C?
A, sir.
Yes, it's the first one. So ano yung sinasabi ng A? This is the limit of course, the same integral, x squared minus 1 dx. Ang ating lower limit ay 2. So this is b. B approaches positive infinity. So yun yung isosolve natin. How do we solve this one? So syempre, hindi mawawala yun yung previous na lesson natin, yung techniques of integration. Hanggang sa matapos yung course na ito, substitution pa rin tayo, nag-integration by parts, in all the techniques that we learned previously. So how do we integrate this one? Si x squared of x squared minus 1. Marami, no? It's a product. It's the product of x and square root of x squared minus 1. Pwede yun. Actually, pwede siguro yung trigonometric substitution din dito kasi it involves x squared minus 1, u squared minus a squared. Also, pwede yata din yung substitution dito. So, anong gagawin natin? Tayo ang magsabi, gawin natin. Anyone? Any suggestion?
Use substitution, sir.
Substitution, sige. So if we use substitute, dito na lang para hindi sayang yung space. We let u as, ano?
X cubed minus 1.
X squared, that's
X squared
minus 1. So du is just 2x dx. So x dx yung hinahanapin natin ng substitute. That means du over 2, that's the same as x dx. So yung x dx palitan natin ng du over 2, tapos yung ito magiging square root of u. Dito natin isulat. So this becomes du over 2 square root of u. How about the, ano na to? The limits. Since nag-substitute tayo, dapat meron tayong substitute din sa limits natin. So how do we do that? Balikan natin yung nawala. Ayan. Balikan natin dito, no? If x is equal to b, what is u? So that is b squared minus 1. If x is equal to 2, what is u? U is equal to 4 minus 1, that is 3. So magiging b squared minus 1 yan, at nagiging 3 yung limits natin, yung bago nating limits. Otherwise, kung ayaw nyo gawin yan, pwede naman mag-stay dyan, pero kailangan bumalik tayo sa variable x. So anyway, ginawa naman na natin, so that should be fine. So that's the limit of b, limit of that one as b approaches positive infinity. So are we now ready to integrate what is the integral of square root of u? Kasi ang 1/2 na nandyan ay pwede lang nating i-factor out. So we are integrating actually square root of u, as simple as that. Well, square root of u is the same as u raised to 1/2. And if we use power rule, the power rule, this is just the same as u raised to 3/2 over 3 over 2. So what is that? This is the same as 2/3 u raised to 3/2. Yan. From 3 to b squared minus 1. I-simplify muna natin para mas madali na lang gamitin or i-apply ang FTC. So this is just the same as 1 times 2, that's 2 over, hindi, simplify. 1/3 na lang siya. 1/3 u raised to 3/2 from 3 to b squared minus 1. And then the next step here is to apply FTC. Limit of 1/3 b squared minus 1 raised to 3/2 minus 1/3 times 3 raised to 3/2. So ito yung kinalabasan ng FTC by applying FTC. Now, what's next? We're going to compute for the limit. So since subtraction pa rin yan, we're going to make use of that property, the limit of a difference. Itong second na ito, meron ba siyang variable dyan? Our variable here is b. Wala. So this is treated as simple as a constant. This is just a constant. So if we simplify that, paano? This is the same as 1/3 square root of 3 cube, or the same as 1/3 3 square root of 3, as simple as square root of 3. Tama ba? I-verify natin. 1/3, 3 raised to 3/2. Yeah, it's square root of 3. Yan. So kung limit siya ng square root of 3, ang sagot natin dyan later ay square root of 3. So actually, siguro sulat na lang natin para mas malinaw. 1/3 b squared minus 1 raised to 3/2 as b approaches positive infinity minus limit of, na ulit yung simplification nito, it's square root of 3, b approaches positive infinity. So we know how to deal with the second limit. Ang sagot ng natin dyan is square root of 3. Our problem now is to answer the first limit, the limit of this one. So how should we answer that one? Siguro wala ng space. Lagay natin dito. How do you answer the limit of 1/3 b squared minus 1 raised to 3/2? B approaches positive infinity. So gamitin natin yung properties. Ang unang polling property na i-apply natin, it's the constant, no? Meron tayong naka-multiply na constant dito, so we can just factor that out. That's 1/3 limit of the same. And then, meron tayong property. What property is that? About the power. If you have a power, limit of a power is, anong property ba yun? Yeah, number 6. Property number 6. That is just the same as the limit of b squared minus 1. Tapos parang lumabas yung power. It's not just the power of b squared minus 1, but the power of the entire expression, na yung limit expression natin. Okay, so ang pinaka-limit na isosolve na natin ngayon, it's the limit of b squared as x approaches positive or b approaches positive infinity, tas yung limit ng 1. So this is actually divided also as the limit of b squared as b approaches positive infinity minus the limit of a constant as b approaches positive infinity. If that exists, we need to raise that to 3/2. Pero kung wala, di wala. So ito yung gusto kong tignan ninyo. Ito. What is that? What is the answer of that? Because for this limit, alam natin na 1 ulit yan. What is limit of b squared as b approaches positive infinity? If b is approaching or is increasing without bound, paakyat ng paakyat, what happens to its square? Because that is b squared. So halimbawa, yung set of natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you square that one, it becomes 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on and so forth. What behavior is that? Hindi ba positive infinity pa rin ito? Di ba? Ang sagot dito ay positive infinity. So overall, we have positive infinity minus 1 raised to 3/2. So what is positive infinity minus 1? Nasa property sa property 11, positive infinity minus or plus constant is positive infinity. So the answer here is positive infinity. If you raise it, if you have a number that is increasing without bound, kasi positive infinity nga yung sagot natin dito, if you raise it again, medyo shortcut natin, wala na rin ng space. If you raise it to 3/2, magiging positive infinity pa rin siya. If you multiply it to a constant 1/3, magiging positive infinity pa rin siya. So all in all, ang sagot natin dito ay, for this limit ay positive infinity minus square root of 3. Sabi natin kanina, this is square root of 3. So what is positive infinity minus constant? That is still using property 11 in your module. The answer is positive infinity. So this improper integral converges or diverges?
Diverges.
Yes.
Diverge.
So ang sagot natin ay diverges. This is a divergent or this is a divergent improper integral. Ganun. So, importante yung divergent. So hindi siya convergent. Dahil positive infinity yung kanyang sagot. It's not a number. Punong-puno yung board natin. Questions before I erase it? Wala. Okay. Let me erase this one then and answer the third problem. Over function, walang square root. X squared plus 16 from positive infinity, baliktad. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, let's answer this one. What type of improper integral? ABC.
C, sir.
Okay, kasi parehas, no? Both of the limits are one of the infinities. And to build the limit expression, ano yung gagawin natin? Dapat dalawa. Okay. Ano yung una? Di ba magsiset tayo ng number C? What is C? Ano yung isiset natin na gusto niyo? Anyone?
0, sir.
Yeah, 0 na lang. So, how should we build this one? Di ba, mag-start tayo sa A to C, which is 0. Of course, A approaches negative infinity plus another limit, it's just the same. So, the same function lang siya, x squared plus 16. Pero from 0, C to B. As B approaches positive infinity. So, nabuild na natin yung limit na kailangan nating i-compute. Our next problem is to identify the integral of our function given. So, namumukhaan nyo ba itong function na to? Ano yung gagamitin natin? Uy. Ano na yung formula natin dyan? That involves the inverse trigonometric function, no? Ano na yung formula natin? If we have du over u squared plus a squared, ang sagot dito ay tangent ba? Arctan? u over a plus c if that is an indefinite integral. Kindly check nga kung tama or may 1 over a dito. Will you please verify? Tama ba ito? Itong formula natin? May 1 over a ba dyan or wala?
Wizard.
Meron?
Meron, sir.
So ito yung gamitin natin dyan. So bale, ang u squared natin ay x squared at yung a natin ay ano? If that is 16, ano yung a natin na gagamitin natin dito?
4, sir.
4. Kasi a squared is 16. That's why a is 4. Okay. Let's now write the answer then. Medyo mahaba-haba to. Okay, so what's the answer? 1 over 4 arctan x over 4. Our variable is x from a to 0 as a approaches negative infinity. And we're simply going to copy this one. It's just the same naman. May konti lang na iba itong mga limits na ito. 1/4 arctan x over 4 from 0 to b as b approaches positive infinity. And then, of course, what's the next step? FTC na naman. So we have limit of 1/4 arctan 0 minus 1/4 arctan a. Tama ba? As a approaches negative infinity. Plus, ganun din, 1/4 arctan, so start with the upper limit, b minus 1/4 minus 1/4 arctan 0 as b approaches positive infinity. So the next question here is, what is arctan 0? What is an angle whose tangent is 0? Yun yung ibig sabihin ng inverse trigonometric functions. Anyone? What is arctan? Arctan 0. If you don't know the answer, you
0, sir.
0 ba?
Yes, sir. Even when you times it with 1/4.
Okay, 0 yan. So 0 times 1/4 is of course 0. So 0 dito at saka dito. Isulat na lang natin para malinaw. So 0 yan yung buo, pero may variable dyan. We just simply write it as is. Arctan A plus limit of 1/4 arctan B minus 0 ulit yan as B approaches positive infinity. So well, 0 lang naman yan. We can simply disregard that. The limit is of course 0. Tama ba? Limit. What is this quantity? This is the same as limit of 0 minus limit of whatever that is. Since it's 0 naman, it's safe to say that is the same as limit of negative nga lang siya. Limit of negative 1/4 arctan A as A approaches negative infinity. Dito naman sa kabila ay maiiwan lang yung limit of 1/4 arctan B as B approaches positive infinity. So that's the next problem we have to solve. How do we evaluate ito, arctan, actually yung negative 1/4, this can be simply rewritten as 1/4 para hindi natin problemahin. Negative 1/4 limit of arctan A as A approaches negative infinity. Plus the same 1/4 limit of arctan B, B approaches positive infinity. Now, how do we answer this one? Any suggestion? Yung number dito, it is approaching or it's decreasing. It's decreasing without bound, pababa ng pababa. Anong mangyayari sa arctan value niya? Anyone?
Negative infinity, sir.
Negative infinity kaya? Sige, saglit lang. Balikan natin itong front. Sige, itignan natin nun yung mangyayari ay arctan. So isulat natin muna yung function arc tan x. At
Hindi pala ate negative infinity, sir.
ito yung ating function. Bakit ganun? Naka-ano siya, naka-degrees lang siya. We want sana to be radians, or can we? Anyway, we can adjust naman. Ito, nakikita natin yung angle, that's B. Tapos nakikita natin kung ano yung value ng ating tangent. Ay, yeah, tangent. Ito. Ito yung tangent of the angle. So halimbawa magsimula tayo sa b equal to 5. The tangent inverse or arctan of 5, the answer is 78.69 degrees. If we make that decreasing or if we make it negative infinity, anong ibig sabihin nun? We decrease the value of b, the argument, yung kinukuhanan natin ng tangent inverse, if we decrease it without bound, pababa ng pababa, anong mangyayari sa ating ano na yun? Ating result? It is approaching ano yung 89.94, kulang pa yung number natin. If we decrease this one, it will approach negative 89.99. Negative 89.99, this is approaching negative 90, no? So ang negative 90 in radians, that is just the same as negative pi over 2. Negative pi over 2. So we go back here and write our answer. So we have negative 1/4. Ang sagot natin dyan ay negative pi over 2. Dito, it's just the same. Magiging positive infinity na lang siya. So ganun din yung mangyayari actually. If we go back here, so yung ating B ay napakataas na number. Yan. Ang ating sagot ay positive 90 degrees or pi over 2. So positive 1/4 positive pi over 2. This is just the same as pi over 8. Tama ba? 1/4 times pi over 2 magiging positive yan. Pi over 8 plus pi over 8. This is just the same as pi over 4. Bakit pi over 4? Kasi 2 pi over 8. Pi plus pi, 2 pi over 8. It's simplified as pi over 4. Okay? Questions? Alright. Kung wala, tuloy natin. Merong second type of improper integrals. Ito yung medyo nakakalito kasi maaaring hindi natin agad-agad ma-recognize na isa siya palang improper integral pa rin. Ito yung tinatawag natin na second type or type 2 improper integrals. Dito sa unang type, madali lang kasi makikita natin na one of the limits involves one of the infinities or even both. Katulad ng nakikita natin sa examples na ito. Kitang-kita na improper integrals ang mga ito. Pero for the second one, it's more difficult actually to distinguish that they are improper integrals because we cannot really we might not be able to realize that it's an improper integral without looking at the graph. Kaya very important yung ating graph dito. At very important din yung knowledge natin about the specific functions. So what are the second type of improper integrals? These are integrals involving infinite discontinuity. So actually, yun lang naman yung pinagkaiba niya dito. One of the limits are infinite discontinuity. Bakit ko sinabing confusing siya? We might confuse it as a normal or a regular definite integral kasi ang kaniyang boundary naman ay walang infinity na nakasulat. Hindi siya obvious na infinity yung one of the limits or both. Pero actually, it is possible that it is actually approaching an infinity. That happens if exactly one of the limits happens to be at an asymptote. So dumaan siya doon sa asymptote, doon nangyayari itong second type of integral. To cut it short or to make it simple, ang isa sa mga boundary ng improper integrals na ito ay asymptote ng graph. So halimbawa dito, this is our module, your module, we are using it. So halimbawa zoom natin. Dito sa graph na ito, this is the function, yung colored blue. What if si C na nangyaring asymptote niya, gawin natin siyang lower boundary. So function, integral of this function, whatever function that is, from negative infinity to kahit sabihin nating number yan, sabihin nating 5 for example. 5 yung nandyan, pero yung nandito ay C, baka 3 yan. Nataon na ang 3 at x equal to 3 ay asymptote or vertical asymptote ng function. This is an example of the second type of improper integrals. So either, bakit tatlo ulit? Because the infinite discontinuity may happen at the lower limit or it may happen at the upper limit. So isa lang ang infinite discontinuity na limit or actually both or hindi. Yung interval of integration natin, somewhere in between on that interval, in that interval ay si asymptote. So ito yung tatlong case na yon. The infinite discontinuity at its lower limit. So this is still a limit function. It's a limit expression, pero one-sided limit na ito. If you notice, this is read as limit of f of x dx from t to b as t approaches a from the right. This is a one-sided limit. Dito, sa upper limit lang. So b from the left naman ito. Tapos dito, ang sinasabi natin dito, hindi naman dalawang infinite discontinuity, no? Baka i-pattern nyo sa letter C sa taas. Hindi. Ang ibig sabihin nito, yung vertical asymptote, x equal to, sabihin natin C yun, it is in between A and B. So A and B here are real numbers, kaya lang, in between them is a vertical asymptote. So kailangan nating hatiin ulit sa dalawang limits. So ito yung pagkakahati. Let's answer the practice exercises. Where are those? Ayan. Dalawa lang pala. Ayan, and the summative test na siya. Okay, so number 1, we have this function, negative 3, 1 minus x raised to 3/4 from negative 3 to 1. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. If we look at it, it looks like an ordinary definite integral kasi ang limits naman niya walang infinity, negative 3 at saka 1. This could be an improper integral because one of them could be an asymptote, meaning at x equal to 1 or at x equal to negative 3, or there is an asymptote in between negative 3 and 1. So how do we know that? So either you graph it, or pwede namang i-base natin dito, what is an asymptote in the first place? Normally, an asymptote is that number where the function becomes undefined or indeterminate, whatever. This is a rational function, so it becomes indeterminate or undefined if the denominator is 0. At kailan ba nangyayari or nagiging 0 itong function natin or itong denominator natin? That happens if x is equal to, ano yun? If x equal to
1.
1. So kapag iset natin na ang x natin ay 1, itong buong function ay undefined because that will give us a quotient na 1/0. Itong x equal to 1 na ito is an asymptote even without looking at the graph. And it happened to be one of the limits. So I know now that this is a type 2 improper integral. Diba? So parang ang hirap, no? Parang pag nahalo siya sa ordinary na definite integral, tas hinalo mo siya sa ganitong klaseng problems, medyo nga mahirap i-visualize, i-realize. Yan. Pero dapat aware tayo na if it happened to be an asymptote, a vertical asymptote, it becomes an improper integral. Kasi kahit pilitin nating hindi gawin ito improper integral with this given problem, along the way, if you do the ordinary definite integration, magkakaroon ka ng undefined na sagot. Hindi mo rin lang siya matutuloy. That would also give you a clue that you are doing it wrong because you are treating it as an ordinary definite integral. Okay. So now that we know that this is a type 2 integral, we have to identify specifically kung anong gagamitin natin na formula sa taas. DEF, ang pagkakaletra niya. Ano dapat doon ang gamitin natin? Ano dapat? Anyone? DEF. Upper limit yan, di ba? Ang vertical asymptote. So it should be letter E. Tama? Yan. So nakikita ko dito ang ating note, isulat ko na lang para hindi papalit-palit yung screen. Okay, so according to this guide, we have limit of -3. So we simply copy kung ano yung, this is not a vertical asymptote. So -3, we introduce t. And then t approaches b1 from the left. From the left. Okay. Copy the function now. -3, 1 minus x raised to 3/4. So actually, yun lang naman. Tapos, kailangan lang nating ulit i-integrate ito. So how do we integrate this one? We can make use of, kasi kailangan may -3 doon. Anyway, that's what is given. Let's stick with, hindi. Walang -3. Ito yung lower limit, sorry. Yan, so ganyan lang yung function natin. Okay, so what technique should we use dito to solve for that, or this integral? We have a binomial raised to 3/4. Power rule, di ba? Tama ba?
Yes, sir.
Power rule lang yan. So, substitution power rule, parang ganon. We let u equal to 1 minus x, du is negative dx. Kaya magiging negative lang yan. So, if we do that, magiging limit of, magiging negative du lang siya, negative du over u raised to 3/4. How about the limits? Kailangan nating palitan yan. So we would have, if x is equal to t, we have u equal to 1 minus ano nga ito? 1 minus t. And if x is equal to -3, u is equal to 1 minus -3, or that is positive 4. Kaya positive 4 to 1 minus t lang itong new limits natin as t approaches 1 from the left. Okay? So this is just the same as u raised to -3/4. And then what? Power rule na tayo. Limit of +1. What is -3/4 plus 1? +1, tapos
1/4, sir.
plus 4/4. So positive na siya, di ba?
Yes, sir.
1/4 over 1/4. T approaches 1 from the left, from 4 to 1 minus t. Or we can write this as 4. Tama ba? 4 u raised to 1/4. T approaches 1 from the left, from 4 to 1 minus t. And then applying now FTC, we have limit of 4 times 1 minus t, 1/4 minus 4, 1/4. Sinubstitute lang natin yung 4 doon. So this is just the same as 4. I-factor out ko na yung 4 dito. Limit of 1 minus t, 1/4. Minus limit of this one, alam natin ulit na constant lang yan. Kailangan lang natin i-simplify siguro. So what is 4 ba? 4 times 4 raised to 1 over 4. Decimal yung binibigay niya. This is the same as 4 times 4th root of 4. So, ganyan. 4th root of 4. Bakit nawala yung limit? Kasi in-evaluate na natin. The limit of a constant is just the same as the constant. So now, our problem is to evaluate the first limit. So parang, this is just the same as example 1 ba yun or 2 kanina? This is just the same as 4 limit of, so t approaches 1 from the left. This is the same as 1 minus t. T approaches 1 from the left. Ang kanyang power, lalabas. Minus 4, 4th root of 4. So how do we evaluate now this one? This is a constant 1. So sulat na natin yung 1 dyan. Tapos, limit of t as t approaches 1 from the left. Ano yung sagot? Substitution, di ba? What is the simplest way to evaluate limit? I-substitute natin ito sa t. So 1 minus 1. Does it actually really matter kung from the left or from the right with this simple polynomial? Polynomial siya, so, di ba? If it's polynomial, i-substitute lang natin yung number dyan. The left side and the right side limits, the two one-sided limits are just the same. So actually, magiging 0 yan. Ang sagot natin ay negative 4, 4th root of 4. I-verify nga natin yung ating sagot. Bakit parang iba? Medyo matagal ang aking.
Sir, sana po yung negative 1.
Negative 1. Ito ba?
Doon po sa limit of negative integral of u raised to negative 3/4. Doon po sa first part.
Where?
Diyan po. Sa may limit of negative integral of u raised to negative 3/4.
Dito ba? Tama ba?
Sa right side, sir. Yan na po. Kasi di ba po negative du. So, yung negative 1, nalagay po sa labas.
Dito, no? Tama ba? So, dapat negative. Tama ba? Yun ba? Kasi negative dx nga ito. So, ano ang maiiba? It's the function. So, negative 4u raised to 1/4. Nagiging negative. At nagiging nag-feedback yata yung... Okay, I think ano, that's the correct one. The process is ano no, baka may arithmetic error lang dyan, pero that should be how we do it. Positive, our answer is positive 4 point, ano, ay positive 4, fourth root of 4. What is fourth root of 4? It's a decimal number, 1 point something. Pwede naman nating isang ilipat as yung index. Gawin nating square or something, pero that's accepted as correct. Okay, can we have a 3-minute break muna before we answer the final question in the practice exercise? 3 minutes lang. Okay, I'm back. So let's answer, where is that? The second problem. under this type, the second type. X minus. Okay. So, question, is this a regular definite integral or an improper integral? How do we know? Without looking at the graph, of course. Anyone?
Because of the presence of 2, sir, which will make the equation 0.
Anong problema kay 2?
Nothing, sir.
If we equate ata ng
Ha? Actually, no, most of the examples that we see, examples of a type 2 improper integral, they are rational functions. Kasi nagkakaroon talaga ng vertical asymptote. In most cases, nangyayari yan for, or if your function is a rational one. Katulad din ito at nung unang example. So, bakit ang 2? It's an asymptote. It's a vertical asymptote. If we let x equal to 2 dito, magiging square root of 0. Square root of 0 naman exists. But as a function, nagiging 1 over 0 yan. So, magiging undefined siya. If we look at the graph, if we graph this one at this particular x value, it is actually an asymptote. Hindi dumaan dito yung graph. That is a line that the function is approaching or nagiging ano lang sila close but will never touch x equal to 2. Hindi siya dadaan. So this is a type 2 improper integral again because one of the limits is is an infinite discontinuity. Infinite. Maraming klase ng discontinuity by the way, no? Merong jump or removable discontinuity, merong jump discontinuity and all. Ang specific na type of discontinuity para masabi siyang improper integral ay kapag infinite yung discontinuity. That's what happens nga yung inuulit natin kapag vertical asymptote yang one of the limits na yan. So the infinite discontinuity happens at the lower limit. So yung definition na nagagamitin natin ulit dyan ay yung unang definition D. Yan, lower limit kasi siya. So if we're going to build the limit that we're going to answer later, it should be integral of the same function, of course, square root of x minus 2 from magiging t, ito yung t, kasi nandyan yung infinite discontinuity to 7. Okay lang yung 7, walang problema kay 7. As t approaches 2 from the right. 2 from the right. Yeah. Bakit from the right? From the left. Kasi kung ito yung asymptote, no, at x equal to 2. That's asymptote, x equal to 2. So, ibig sabihin, yung function natin, maaaring paganyan, or paganyan, di natin alam. Yung yan. Pero from the right, kasi manggagaling tayo sa right side ng 2. Kasi nasa lower limit ito. Pag upper limit yan, katulad nung kanina, from the left. Kasi parang ganyan yan or ganyan. So, magmumula siya from the left. One-sided limits. Okay, so how do we answer this? Parang parehas lang naman, no? Doon sa unang example, this time nga lang, nandito ang infinite discontinuity. Because square root of x minus 2 is again, can be written as x minus 2 raised to 1/2. Pwede natin gamitan ng power rule. Pero unahin natin yung substitution. So x minus 2 du is positive, dx sakto lang. And then the limits would become At x equal to 7, we have u equal to 7 minus 2, 5. X equal to 2, or t. It's t. Magiging u equal to, ano na, t minus. So we perform the substitution first. Ba't ko kinokopya lang? So magiging du yan over square root of u from t minus 2 to 5. Okay. So how do we integrate now square root of, or 1 over square root of u? This becomes u raised to negative 1/2 du tapos saglit lang. Ang sinubstitute lang natin pala ay dito lang. Dapat mag-move din ito eh. Maging 0. If x is equal to 2, then u is equal to 0. Mag-move din dapat siya. So mali yung ginawa yata natin kanina. Balikan natin yun. Kasi nag-substitute tayo into u eh. So, dapat maging 0. So tama, magiging asymptote siya ng 1 over square root u na function. Hindi natin yung ginawa kanina, baka mali yun. I-check natin yung sagot natin dito later on. Okay. So that we are now ready to integrate this one. So we have limit of by power rule. Ano ang limit niya? Plus 1. So positive 1/2 over 1/2 of course from t minus 2 to 5. As t approaches 0 from the right. 0 na siya, hindi na siya sa 2 kasi meron tayong substitution na ginawa. FTC, so we have, mauna yung 5. So 5 raised to, hindi. That is the same as,
Excuse me, sir. Are we not going to add the plus 1 and the u raised to 1/2?
u raised to 1/2. Nagad tayo.
Oh, okay, sir.
Plus 1/2, di ba? 1/2. So this is 2 u raised to 1/2. FTC na, limit of 2 times 5 raised to 1/2 minus 2 times t minus 2 raised to 1/2. T approaches 0 from the right. Okay, so the next step is to compute for the limits. So this is again a constant. Kaya kopyahin lang natin yan. That is just 2 square root of 5, di ba? Kaya pwede bang isulat na natin diretso? The limit of 2 square root of 5 is just 2 square root of 5 minus, para ang problema na lang natin ay to compute the limit of this 1. 1/2 as t approaches 0 from the right. So 2 square root of 5 minus, parang yung ginawa din natin kanina, magiging yan, 1/2 t 0 from the right. Again, this is a polynomial. Ang polynomial, wala namang point of discontinuity yan. The limit is just the same. So, i-substitute lang natin yung 0 doon minus Ano yung sagot? Negative 2 times 0 minus 2, 1 half. 2 square root of 5 minus 2 times negative 2, 1 half. 2 square root of 5 minus, magkakaroon tayo ng imaginary number. Tama ba?
Sir, yung t minus 2 lang ata yung may exponent ng 1 half. Hindi kasali yung 2.
Ay, saglit lang ka. Ano na yun? Ito, dapat nandyan sa labas. Tama ba? Minus 2. So, minus 2. Ganun pa din. Imaginary number yan. So, wala, hindi yan tama. Hindi ganyan yung analysis. Sige, anyway, what happens if we put numbers from the right of 0? Ano ba yung nasa right of 0? 0.1, di ba? 0.01, 0.001. If we put it here, ano yung mangyayari? It will approach a particular number. Pero bakit kaya siya naging imaginary? Saan tayo nagkamali?
Sir, clarification lang po. Magpapalit po pa talaga yung con as t approaches to the positive, to the right, or
Dapat
magiging 0 po yun. Hindi na siya 2.
Ay. So, magiging 0 yun. Ito, di ba? Kung hindi natin palitan, balik natin. Magiging 2 yan. Sakto lang. So, pagkakaroon tayo ng 0. Tama ba? 2 minus 2. So, 0 yan.
Yes, sir.
Actually, that's the correct answer. 2 square root of 5. So, hindi dapat natin isama sa substitution process natin yung t. Sa bagay, ang substitution naman nangyayari lang siya sa process ng integration. But this is a limit, so dapat outside talaga siya. So ano yung kanina? I-verify nga natin, tama ba yung ginawa natin? What function is that? 1 minus x 3/4. X what are the limits? Negative 3 and 1. Ano yung sagot natin kanina? Sa number 1? 4 fourth root of 4. Tama ba?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
4 fourth root of 4. Kung palitan natin in terms of square root, kasi ganyan yan, 1/4. Kasi pag gusto natin gawing 2 yan, ano kaya? Eh. 1/2/2, di ba? Is 1/4. So, parang square root of 4. Kaya 4 hindi siya ganyan. Dapat plus 2 raised to 2 pa rin siya. 1/4. 2 na. So this is 4. Ay, tama naman. 4 square root of 2. 4 square root of 2. Or that is just the sigma square root of 2 raised to 5. 4 square root of 2. Tama yung ginawa natin nung una. Hindi natin pinapalitan ito. It's just the same. Okay, it's almost 2 hours from since we started the meet. May mga tanong ba tayo? Questions? Meron o wala? Okay. So kung wala, I'll take that as no. Wala siguro. There are only 6 items in your summative test. Is that 4? Summative test 4 or 5? 5. So, i-ano ko na lang ulit yung... So, ganun pa rin naman. Solution plus i-Google form to summarize your answers. Test 4 pala, 4. 4 na type 1, improper integrals, plus 2 na ano, na type 2, improper integrals. Okay, so it's almost 10. If you do not have any question, then we end the meet here.
Excuse me, sir, kailan po yung due date ng summative test po?
Bukas. Sige, I'll give you extension hanggang Sabado siguro. Any more? Bakit? Hindi niyo pa ba nasasagot?
Di pa, sir.
Alam na tan ang laptop mo. Apang ista ka ni Batman.
Sige. Kung wala nang tanong, I think we end the meet here. For the deadline of the submission, siguro hanggang Monday. Sige. I will give you until Monday, but pero di ba holiday sa Monday pala? Saglit lang.
Yes, sir.
Holiday sa Monday. Kaya nga sabi ko, ano kaya? I will still siguro post the form tomorrow, but I will give you until ano kaya? Sige, sa ano na? Sa Tuesday na lang. Holiday bang Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday? November
Sir,
2?
hindi ata.
Oo. So, sige. Doon ko na lang i-post yung form next week na. The first few days of next week. So, you will have more time to answer. I will be posting the recording na lang later. Okay? Okay na?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Sige. We can now leave the meet.
Yes,
Good
sir.
night.
Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you,
Bye,
sir.
Thank you po, sir.